Deputy Gary Gannon, please.
Kia ora, Ken Corley. Minister, I want to begin by expressing my revulsion, the revulsion of my party, and I'm sure the revulsion of all of us across the House at the latest war crime committed by Russia and Ukraine, the bombing of a maternity and children's hospital in Mariupol. A picture from that atrocity of a heavily pregnant and bloodied woman being stretched away from the smouldering ruins of the hospital is on the front pages across the globe today. It should remain burnt into all of our brains. This is Putin's Russia. An evil regime which thinks nothing of dropping missiles on pregnant women, newborn babies and little children. Yesterday's horror in Mariupol, where the dead are now being buried in mass graves, underscores why we need to do everything we can to help as many people as possible escape the barbarity of Putin. Minister, the Irish people have acted with extraordinary generosity in response to the humanitarian crisis being caused by this war. Thousands of offers of accommodation have already been made. In schools around the country, Ukrainian children have already started to attend classes. I want to acknowledge that the state has acted quickly to speed up what can often be lengthy bureaucratic processes, be they in surrounding residency rights, in PPS numbers and with healthcare entitlements. But Minister, the state will have to do more than merely extend the right to use services to Ukrainian refugees. It will have to adequately resource those services to cater for the increased demand and the increased need of those experiencing them. We know, for example, the childcare system in Ireland is at breaking point, with waiting lists of 12 months and more in some areas. We also know that for those parents lucky enough to find a childcare price, that costs are equivalent to a second mortgage. The healthcare service is under unprecedented pressure. Nearly 1 million people are currently on public hospital waiting lists, waiting to be treated or assessed, nearly 100,000 of whom are children. Disability services are also in crisis. In December, the Ombudsman for Children heavily criticised the government for its failure to provide assessments for thousands of children. So not only is the state failing to provide adequate services, it is failing to even assess what services children need currently. Meanwhile, we all know that in the midst of a catastrophic housing crisis with more than 9,000 children now in emergency accommodation, including more than 2,500 children, Minister, I want to ask, we need to ensure that when Ukrainian people come here seeking refuge, that as we open our doors, that they are able to access the services, not only that they're entitled to, but that they will need. I therefore want to ask, what additional resources, and please be specific, are going to be provided to childcare services, to education, to meet the trauma that will be experienced by children as they go into our schools, into the health service, into our housing services, to ensure that the entitlements can be delivered upon and the need is going to be met.
I fully agree with and support what you said about the calling out, particularly where we see yesterday a maternity hospital being bombed, and there's no words you can express to that. We see the images we see on the front page of our newspapers this morning at the shock and the horror of that. Our government is, on behalf of the Irish people, standing up. Minister Coveney has been active in New York this week. We have led the call and the establishment now an investigation by the International Criminal Court to look at such instances. He has, and our ambassador on the Security Council, where we have a critically important place, in the General Assembly, on the Human Affairs, on the UN Security Council and on the Human Rights Council, we are standing up the voice for those nations which are being attacked, and we will continue to do that. You rightly put the question, though, of what we can do here at home, and the question, I think, of how we particularly manage the influx of young children who are going to come in is critical. Can I just share one personal experience? A number of years ago, I was very fortunate I was brought by Human Appeal, Irish Islamic charity, to a town called Rahanli on the Syrian-Turkish border, and Antakya, a city, Antioch. And I saw there at first hand how they managed with the very similar circumstances, where at that time the bombing of Aleppo, the destruction of Aleppo, was seeing very similar circumstances, people flee. And I saw firsthand how they coped and managed that, and I think it provides us a lesson. Actually, they engaged then the Syrian, and we need now, I think, to engage with the Ukrainian Minister of Education, who I believe is talking to our minister, and also, I understand the Teachers' Council are now looking to see how could we employ some of the Ukrainian teachers who are coming in to see how quickly could we establish classes that will allow them, give them flexibility in terms of either maintaining the Ukrainian curriculum or work with our Polish and other colleagues to make sure that there's connection between how they are taught in the first number of weeks that they may be there before they come here, but to involve the Ukrainian community and the Ukrainian ambassador, which I'm absolutely confident we will be able to do, to make sure that we can provide the best education and welcome for those children for whatever period of time that they are here. And I think that is our first duty. Yes, we have a voice in the Security Council. Yes, we send humanitarian support. We don't send military offensive weapons, but we can be good at what we should stand up for in the Security Council and in the classrooms we're going to have to set up is looking after those children particularly as a sign of where our support stands and how our moral outrage is what's happening turns to effect.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy.
Minister, I think your ideas yesterday are welcome. I think they're good ideas. In the first instance, that we need to recognise the trauma that are going to be experienced by people as they arrive here, and that needs to be met first off. I think the idea of employing Ukrainian teachers, for example, has a lot of merit. Those same people who are coming over here, though, are going to be looking at their cities under siege. They're going to be looking at the maternity hospitals being struck with missiles. Their husbands are going to be left with AK-47s in their hand. In addition to wanting to employ them, I want to ensure that their emotional needs are being met. How much is going to be put into counselling services? Will we have a trauma-informed education service so when the children arrive here in their schools that they can actually receive counselling? That's all, our systems are already stressed. I want to ask in relation to the people who are currently in Poland at the moment seeking sanctuary, will we be able to perhaps even send buses there so we can bring people here who are in search of sanctuary and refuge? What active measures are we going to be taking? For example, the housing need being quite acute. There's a chronic lack of properties at the minute. Minister O'Brien has said emergency planning powers may be used to build modular housing. When will that building likely to commence? Is there a plan? Is there a roadmap? I appreciate this couldn't happen on day one, but now 3 weeks into the siege, where were we in terms of an actual plan?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
We're going to have to, as I said, act with real speed, and in some instances that would require us in the likes of modular housing to apply different rules to what we normally apply in the planning system. So we can actually build and establish, and my understanding from the Department of Housing and from Cabinet's discussions on this, that we're looking at just those sort of emergency measures which will allow us to build such modular housing outside the normal planning process. More immediately, I think you're right, the assessment and the health support for arriving Ukrainian citizens, particularly those who will have suffered incredibly traumatic experience, is critical. There is now in Dublin Airport such an established welcoming committee and series of public health services, provision of social welfare numbers, provision of food and water, and the organisation of shelter, starting that. A lot, 2/3, are staying with friends and family and relations, and that actually is very welcome because that gives them some secure succour and support. Yes, we will have to go further. As they move into schools, those NEP services that we have at the present time need to be applied. We need to match the services we have, particularly in support, I think, of lone parents, which we may see a large number of coming with children, and match our social security system, which has that expertise, to this new community which is arriving.
Thank you.